Okay guys, today I'm going to help you out a little bit with the Chemthink and help probably explain it a little bit easier. And I definitely encourage taking notes while doing it. I mean, that always helps when you go back to the questions. Okay, ions. So at certain times, atoms can gain or lose one or more electrons. When this happens, we say that the atom has formed an ion. Ions are just individual atoms or groups of atoms that have a charge. This charge comes from an imbalance in the number of positive protons and negative electrons. Since the electrons really don't contribute to the mass of the atom, gaining or losing electrons does not change the overall mass of the atom. So remember that. It doesn't change how much it weighs. That has to do with neutrons and protons. It just changes the charge. It does affect it in other ways. Ions can behave very differently than the atoms from which they are formed. As we will see in later units, forming ions is one way that atoms bond together to make new substances. Okay, so here's lithium, and it shows all the particles present. You got your protons, of course, and they have a positive charge, +1, as they always show it. Electrons, they always have a negative charge. Neutrons, and like their name, they're neutral, so they have no charge. So if you look at it like this, and I really like how Chemthink does this. So protons, you have 3 protons. So a positive charge, a positive charge, and a positive charge. And then you have 3 electrons, a negative charge, a negative charge, and a negative charge. And you don't really have to write the neutrons, they don't really stand for anything. But if you look at this, you see how each one has an opposite? They cancel each other out. Therefore, this lithium atom has a neutral charge, or a total charge of 0. So just be lithium. So when an atom loses or gains an electron, it changes its charge. So now when you lose an electron, you have an extra positive charge. And that positive charge goes to change the lithium into a +1 ion. So now it has a positive charge. And it's lithium plus. So remember, whenever you lose an electron, it's going to be a positive ion. And when you gain an electron, it's going to be a negative ion. It sounds confusing, but if you draw it out like Chemthink does up here, it's a lot easier. So now it's going to go through showing us how to do positive. So they got an oxygen atom, which is 8 protons, of course, and 8 electrons to be neutral. And then, of course, you got your neutrons. So it's right now a neutral element. It has no charge, because everything is equal here, as it shows. So it's just oxygen. So let's say oxygen gains 2 electrons. So since these charges are alone, there's 2 negative charges alone, so it's a -2 charge, becoming a -2 ion. So now it's oxygen -2. It is important to remember that negative ions can only be formed by, so I talked about this a bit. I mean, remember, negative gains, positive loses, which is weird, but you gotta think about it like that when you're talking about periodic elements. Protons and neutrons don't change in ions. Okay, so sometimes groups of atoms will form ions. These ions are called polyatomic ions. A closer look at this name will tell us something about what a polyatomic ion is. So poly, means many, and atomic refers to atoms, and ion is the charge. So many atoms with charges. So now we go into Lewis dot structure. This is kind of where that plays in. So the dots around the valence electrons show how they are able to form bonds. So hydrogen has the single electron, and oxygen has 8 electrons. No, 6. So hydrogen has a single electron that's able to bond with one of these, but since oxygen has a pair full of its electrons, it can't just bond like that. In order to bond, they need another electron. So because it took another electron to bond it, the overall charge is negative. And then once you see the electrons that bond with another element, they do this thick line between the two. They put brackets around it. So it shows us more about ions, or large ions. So then this little summary of the ions is always helpful. Positive ions are formed when atoms lose electrons. Negative ions are formed when atoms gain electrons. And only electrons can be gained or lost. Protons cannot. Well, some circumstances, but you know. Group of atoms that have gained or lost electrons are called polyatomic ions. So now we're going to go over the questions. So with these, it's smart to have your notes out. Maybe, if I can find my notes. Well, I can't find my notes, so. Well, yeah. So you always want to, I do a split screen so I can look at my notes while I do the questions. But in this situation, I'll just do full screen. So how many electrons would be found in an ion whose symbol is given below? So we have nitrogen. So we look at our periodic table. Nitrogen is 7. So usually it would have 7 electrons, but since it's gained 3, it would have 10. Okay. So since it's gained an electron, once again, it would be a negative charge. But make sure you put your 1 there. I don't know what's up with that. Okay. So now you look at this, and it's lost 2. So now you have a positive 2 charge. Are you starting to figure it out a bit? Get how, like, you do the positive and the negatives? Positive when they lose, negative when they gain. Once again, you can draw out that little, like, subtraction table to see the balance there. So why does the silicon -2 ion have a -2 charge? Remember, it can't gain protons. They don't gain when you're dealing with ions. You can't gain protons. Protons have nothing to do with ions. Negative is when you gain it, so yay. Once again, nothing to do with protons, and it hasn't lost because it's negative. Okay, so 16 protons. First we're going to look at our periodic table. Let's see, 10 sulfur. Okay, so we know it's a sulfur atom because of its protons, and then it's gained 2 electrons. So it'll be a -2 charge. Okay, 15, 1 ripe phosphorus. Okay, and it's gained 3, so -3. Cool. A couple more questions to go, about 4 more. So if a positive 1 ion has 29 protons, what element is it? So first, let's figure out how many protons. Which element has 29? 23, 1. Okay, copper. So it's copper. 82 protons. Okay, let's see. 75, 79, 81, 80. Lead. Lost 2, so it's a +2 charge. Oh, I like these. We're going to go and look at it. So protons, the blue ones, 1, 2, 3, so it's going to be lithium. Oops. It should have, so we only have 1, 2 electrons. We're supposed to have 3, so we lost 1, so it's +1 charge. Look at it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh shoot, that is beryllium. And then we have 1, 2 electrons, so it's lost 2. Yay, we finished it. If you guys have any more questions, you know where to find me.